Okay, we are in the Parashat Shvuah weekly Torah portion, Parshas Mattos, Maasie. We finish off the Sefer Bar Midbar, the book of Numbers this week. It's a great week. It's not good for the Baal Kriya because the Baal Kriya has to read two Parashiyot, and they are not the best, not the easiest storylines. That there in the first part we deal with vows. Nadarim, and we'll deal with that in a few minutes, and that will be our main focus. And then also says the next part after that we go into Hashem tells Moshe you're going to get revenge, or avenge the what do you call it, the Midianites. The Midianites are the ones who joined with Moab to try to destroy the Jews by getting us involved in immoral actions with their ladies. And so God says, okay, you're going to attack them and you're going to kill them out. It's going to be genocide. You're going to kill every woman who had relations with a man or would have been above the age of 3 for that matter. That's the bottom line of that. And anybody else, any other women you can keep alive. But and then they would end up taking, when the Jews would go in, what they did not do was destroy the possessions. They took the wealth with them. They took everything as spoils of war. But and Moshe was upset with them. Why did you take them? And why did you keep some of the women? Why did you do these things? You should have killed them all. And so that after all, they are the ones that causes the problem. Okay, fine. So we're going to find out how what to do with that. And then Elazar Cohen gives koshering laws. In the middle of here, because they went to war, they brought back the spoils of war. So now he tells them about the gold and the silver vessels, the brass and the metal, and so on and so forth, how to kosher it. Anything that went through fire, if they cooked it, it had to go through fire. Anything that went through water or was cooked, it had to be purged in that manner. Okay, you want to get rid of the treifot, the non-kosher materials in those things. So that's what has to happen. Then he says, then Moshe tells them how to split up between the armed forces who went into the to drive everybody out. It was 1,000 from each tribe, altogether 12,000 men plus Pinchas, and they're going to split it with the. They're going to give attacks to the Kohanim and the Leviim, and they're also going to split it with their brethren, and he tells them how to do that. That's the long aliyah that goes with that. Then, a very interesting part, which really I should concentrate more than the Nadarim, but I probably will do this on Shabbos. It's Reuven and Gad, tribes Reuven and Gad come up and say to Moshe, we have good land here on the other side of the Jordan. We'd like to have this land instead of going across the Jordan. Greater Israel is for the rest of the Jews, but we're pasture people. And this is great pastoral land. So let us stay here. And Moshe thought, oh my God, they're afraid of going over and fighting, and you're going to make the same mistake as your forefathers did 40 years ago. And you're going to cause the Jews to remain another 40 years in desert. What are you doing? They said, Chas v'shalom. We're not afraid of any. We'll lead off. We'll be the lead fighters going in. And we'll even settle the people, and then we'll come back. But we would just want this land because it's better for us. Ultimately, Moshe agrees. And he says, not only Reuven and Shimon, but then he asks, anybody else want to go? So two of the 10 families of Manasseh decide they also have a lot of cattle, so flocks, so they want to stay there too, and it's called half the tribe of Manasseh. It's interesting. Half the tribe is only 2 out of 10, and so fine. But that's what happens. They build the cities. Then the next thing we hear in Parashat Maasie, again a fascinating thing, is we hear the 42, I believe it's 42 places that they went. I believe it's 42. I'm not 100% sure about that. 42 Rashi says 42 places that they stopped along the way from Egypt all the way to Mitzrayim to Israel. So the question is, why do we have to hear the 42 places? So Ramban, I believe, says that the reason is because people, am I right? I'm pretty sure it's Ramban. He says that people would not believe that they traveled all those different places. Or they would say it was all made up. So here he's detailing all these places. There goes Rashi, brings another reason. That the reason that they had to go through all 42 places is that God is reviewing what happened, like a king, like a father who's bringing his son, who has 6 sons, and says, here we stopped, here was a doctor, here was this, here was that. So I'm reminding you of the places that we went, and you reminisce like that. Very nice. Okay, they also hear about, then the next part, we actually cut up Eretz Yisrael. We find out the real borders of Israel, and if you look on page 923, you can see what some of these borders are. You look at the line, and you'll see what's going on there, fine. And some of the, it goes to the sea. According to an article I once read, it went into the sea. The borders went into the sea, so we had, what do you call it? We have 200 miles of coast that we call ours, right? It's called the Americas. That we have 200 miles out, and it's still considered our coast. What's it called?
Wait, I thought it was 12 miles.
12 miles. Okay, it could be 12 miles. I won't argue. What's it called, though? It's still considered our territory. Outside.
Yeah. The opposite of international waters.
Oh, good. Opposite of international waters. Fine.
Yeah.
It's our waters. So, but it goes through that, and it says, why do we have to know? Now, the question is, why do we need to know the borders? Because there are certain mitzvot, Rashi explains, that are only dependent upon Israel and others that are not. So if they're dependent upon Israel, then I have to know where the borders are. I have to know for Truma, for Maasie, for all these things. I have to know. Fine. And then we're going to have the cities of refuge that will be set up. And you're going to have 48 of those. It's going to go to the Levium. And again, if you look on page 927, you're going to see how the area was. You had the city, then you had the open area, then the fields and vineyards, so on and so forth. That was all owned in general by Bnei Israel, but it was where the Levium would stay. And if a person was going into a city of refuge, they would have to run to one of these places. So really 6 would be there was 3 on this side of the Jordan, or on the side that they are right now, and then there's going to be 3 on in Eretz Yisrael. And why? Because the Gemara says that in the side of where they are right now, there were more murderers. The land apparently wasn't as holy. Wait 1 second, let me just go to this, and then you can go. Then we talk about, after that, setting up the cities of refuge, we talk about people who are going to go to the cities of refuge, namely a person who kills accidentally. But a person, and he has to stay until the Kohen Gadol dies. And then the last part of the Torah, last part of this book, is what we talk about. Menashe's tribe comes to Moshe and says, Moshe, you said Zelophehad's daughters would take their father's land. Well, what happens if they marry somebody else? That land will then default and go down to the brother, the sons, or the son or the husband, if they die, if they die beforehand. And therefore, our parcel of land will be lost. They'll never come back to us. So what are we going to do? Moshe says, when the daughter inherits, it would be nice if she would marry into the family. In other words, you have a lot of people in the tribe, 2nd cousin, 3rd cousin, 4th cousin, marry somebody like that. They marry their cousins, I believe it was. They marry... What would they marry? They married their cousins, right. and everybody lived happily ever after. But that would be the end of this particular Torah portion. So Mattos Maasie really covers an extensive amount of information. Yes, well, your question is?
So on the eastern side of Jordan, was it proportionately larger amounts of accidental murders, or are they just using the cities incorrectly?
Are they using the cities?
incorrectly. You call them murderers. They're more.
So the way that Rashi, okay, great question. Were they more excellent to murders, or were they just misusing the letter? Okay, fine. So in order to a person to be considered an accidental murderer, first of all, there has to be witnesses to the action. Okay, and the way a normal thing would be is somebody is in the middle of the forest and he's chopping it down a tree, and when he swings and he has his friend with him, he knows the friend is there. He's not taking enough precautions. Okay, and he's not trying to kill the guy, but at the same time, he hits the tree with his axe. Either the head of the axe flies off because it wasn't securely on the thing, hits him and he dies, or a piece of wood flies out from the tree and hits him. In other words, it's a real accident. It wasn't what he was trying to do. That person, if there's witnesses, will have to be he'll be brought to the courts, and then if he's found innocent of premeditated murder, then he has to get to the city of refuge. Fine. And they will accompany him to that. If there are no witnesses to anything, well, the guy got away with murder.
Whatever it was, in other words.
He got away with it. All right. So now what happens is, what the Gemara says is, let's say you had a murderer. Okay, he was a murderer. He killed somebody, but nobody saw him. And you saw a person who killed somebody accidentally, but nobody saw him. So Hashem is going to set up a system, and where the murderer will be at the bottom of the ladder, the accidental murderer will be at the top of the ladder, coming down, and he'll fall on the guy in front of witnesses, kill the murderer, and the other guy will run to the city of refuge. Or what you said, they will misuse it. They'll say that they'll get some sort of witnesses to testify that it was a mistake, whatever the case is going to be. But that's really on the other side of the Jordan, the east side of the Jordan. That's what they seem to be indicating, that there were a lot more murderers over there. Okay. It's an interesting case, the study. Okay, let's go back to 918. We're talking about Nadarim, the very beginning of Mattos. I'm sorry, 900. I went to Maasie already. Okay. We're talking. So Archibald gives you an introduction. I'm sure I've done this before, but his vows and oaths are very interesting. So let's do it one more time. The Torah introduces a chapter which, upon reflection, gives a person the right to do something that heretofore could be done only by God, namely to create a new halachic status. By pronouncing the sort of vow or oath set forth in the passage, a person is given the power to invoke a neder, a vow or oath, thereby placing upon himself or others, or upon objects of his choice, a status equivalent to that of a commandment of the Torah. That's why we always say b'li neder. We don't want to make a vow. His neder is so strong that a person violating it can suffer a court-imposed penalty of lashes. Okay, it's not something, I made a mistake. No, you have to be very careful. It must be understood that there is no English equivalent to the word neder for lack of anything closer. It is commonly translated as vow, a word that means a pledge to do something. A simple pledge, however, though a Jew must keep his word, is not subject to this passage. The neder of the Torah's parlance is as follows. There are two categories of neder. One can prohibit to himself something that the Torah permits by saying, for example, the produce of such and such a country is forbidden to me for 30 days. You decide you want to protest that country, so you're going to say the fruits of Lebanon. That's not Israel, right? Lebanon is Lebanon. Okay, Lebanon. The fruits of Lebanon are also to me for 30 days. Oh, guess what? Now somebody brings you fruit from Lebanon, and you can't eat it because you decided that you're going to make it usher.
It has the power, the force of an actual mitzvah. You took upon yourself a commandment.
Correct. You created.
Yeah.
You created one more commandment. Yes. You now 614 just for you. That's called customizing your Judaism.
Yeah.
You decided to do something. Okay. Or one, I don't think Rabbi Linder would appreciate that, but okay. Or one may obligate oneself to bring an optional offering or to perform an optional commandment, such as to contribute to a particular charity or to consecrate a particular animal as an offering. So here you go. You decide, I'm going to give $10 million to the Midwest Torah Center. Okay. We have to pay our budget. Good. So 10 million should just about cover that. And so then what happens is, you just made a vow. Mazel tov. So all these people who made pledges to pay off for the dinners, okay, when they made a pledge, unless they said bli neder, they became obligated to pay.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that it's a very difficult thing to do. That's why when you're giving all these things, that's why we always say bli neder. I'm not making a promise. If it's a small try, blah, 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 blah.
The English word vow, it is interesting because, okay, so a vow would almost be, well, I was going to say like a contract. A contract is in writing. And if you're found guilty of violating a contract in a civil court, you have to pay certain penalties specified. But a vow is strictly an oral thing. It's not written.
Between you and God.
And so in other words, in most the laws of most countries, how much would that hold up in court?
Well, it's an oral agreement. It's an oral agreement. Oral agreements hold up.
If you have witnesses.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But here's no witness. Here's, I promise to give blank.
Oh, so you can even, you can make it by yourself.
I made a neder. That's why when people are out and they say, God, if you get me out of here, I'm going to become Shomer Shabbos. Guess what? You made yourself, you put your vow yourself. If you at least say, God, if you get me out of this bli neder, I'll try to my best to be Shomer Shabbos. Maybe get away with it, yeah.
What's bli?
Without. Bli neder, without a vow.
Right.
So I have to say those words. That's why when people say, I promise to do, don't do that. Say, I promise bli neder. Make sure you say bli neder. And actually, you should never say I promise. You should have in mind to try to do your best to do it. I'm not going to argue with that. But if you're going to say, come hell or high water, I'm going to be there. Well, let me tell you something. Hell or high water comes really quickly. And you don't get it, and now you were just over a vow.
For $10,000, a time comes, well, I just don't have, things didn't work out, I don't have the money. But you made the pledge.
You made the vow. It's your problem. Yeah, you have to now go through being matcha neder.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When people don't realize the power of speech, and what we're getting from this parsha, that's why I want to concentrate on this, is the power of speech is very, very strong. When I say something, those words become reality. And crazy enough, when I think it, when it comes to tzedakah, that also becomes a reality.
And in other words, so at what point, I think we talked about this before, do you actually, is it, if you just say, I'm going to do something, does that constitute a vow without you saying,
you should always say bli neder.
I am making a neder that I'm...
You should always say bli neder.
Huh?
You should always say bli neder.
In other words, even if you don't say, I'm making a neder that I'm going to give $10,000, and you just say, I'm gonna give you I'm pledging $10,000. If you didn't use the word neder, that's still considered in by halakha, because you made a statement that you are going to do something.
Again, you made it reality.
So what if somebody said it in English, said, if I can, what is it? You still have to use it?
I once said to somebody, I promise to give you blank if this. If this, then that. But if this doesn't happen, I release myself. I made a condition. Very clear condition.
Not just I pledge.
No, I didn't want to say I pledge. I said I will give you blank if blank happens. Okay. No problem. Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, so
but once blank happens,
then you're in.
Then I'm in.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, one thing when I was with my house, so somebody else wanted to bid on the house, and I said to the person, instead of letting the homeowner win on this, let's us get into a room. I'll tell you what I'm the most I'm willing to pay. You tell me the most you're willing to pay. Whatever the difference is between that and the real price we pay, that person gives that leftover as tzedakah to whichever place you want. The Torah Center made money that day. Okay, because I got the house.
Wow.
Torah Center made good money that day, and I could have dragged the payment out. There was nobody knowing what I was doing. The minute I got the loan, we closed on the house. I gave right away. Here's your check. Thank you very much. Wow. And so Rabbi Lindo can tell you that it was a good sized check. But that's what I'm saying. Once you say that, it's done. Yeah. You don't stop fooling around. And I always say, don't play on God. You don't play on a man either, but certainly don't play with God. You said you're going to do something, pay it up. Yeah.
So when you say you're going to do something, so not even saying I don't say I will promise to do this. If it's a matter of just saying you'll do this, just your word is your word, without the I promise part. So it's better not say anything unless you're willing to do it.
Well, certainly you shouldn't have to say anything unless you want to do it.
Right.
Again, your words make reality.
Right.
So for instance, I say, you're going to come to minyan tonight? So what do you always say? Not you personally, but what's always said to me? Bli neder. Billy Netter is coming. Okay. But Billy Netter, because if they say yes, and then they're stuck on the road, so then, or something happens, they can't make it, well, you made a netter show up. What are you doing? So you always say Billy Netter. Now, depending on who's saying Billy Netter, by the way, will determine whether or not you're coming. Okay? You have to know the Billy Netter.
I'll try it. So I'll try. In other words, you're not making a commitment saying,
I'll try, but even there, I'll try Billy Netter, which means I really cover myself. I really cover my base.
Because you might not really try.
Yeah, you're not going to really try. Leave me alone. I'll try Billy Netter.
That would be misleading.
Somebody called me up. Somebody
trying to get out of it.
What happened was I donated to charity, right? Charity. You remember that?
Yeah.
Fine. But something happened on the computer, so the money didn't go through. Somebody hacked it. So I got an email that they hacked it. Then the rabbi called me up, and he said to me, "You saw what happened?" I said, "Yeah. I tell you what, give me till the end of the week, and I'll get the check in the mail, because I didn't want to give my charge card already. I'll give you a check." So that day, I went upstairs. I wrote the check out. I put it I gave it to my wife to mail out. I said, "Here, please, when you go to the," she was going to mail. What do you call it? The post office anyway. So please mail it out, and that's it. So I told him give it to the end of the week, but I didn't want to wait till the end of the week because I may forget. I said give me to the end of the week to mail it out. That's all.
Yeah.
Because if I would have told him I had to mail it out right now, so I have to run to the post office. I don't want to do that. I want a couple of days, and because I know my wife's going to go, so fine. But that's how you have to do it. When people call me up for donations, right? So they always want to give me the baloney. You gave this, that. I mean, I don't even listen to them anymore. I just say, okay, I'll give you a chai. Okay, done. It's good. Leave me alone. And so the question always is, do you want to give the charge card? No. Send me an envelope. I'm not interested in your charge and to give a charge card every time. Yeah. But once I get it, I have to mail it out. Okay? And the same thing, by the way, let's say somebody made Misha Berach here, right? Misha Berach, and they went to the whole family, and they said a matana. Fine. What all the Mishigasit did do. It comes Sunday morning, if you, the past president, or Rabbi Lindo, the president, would say, send out the bill, okay? The bill goes to that person. That person gets the bill. That day that they get the bill, they have to pay. That day. Or if you call and the chip on Sunday, you said matana, you're leaving town. Okay, give me a matana. That's it. You're chayav. You have to give it. That's all these laws of tzedakah, but it's also laws of giving your word. On the other hand, if you said bli neder, I have nothing to hold you by. Now I have to go buy. Bli neder, you'll give it to me, shkayach. So send me the bill, and I don't have to send her out right away. I have some time because I said bli neder. I didn't make it a neder. Something can happen. Then who knows what's going to be? Okay. By the way, you shouldn't use bli neder as a way out. Like what's the expression? I cross my fingers behind your back. It really doesn't work like that. But you really should live up to your word, which is why I agree with you. If you're not willing to do it, don't open your mouth. Don't volunteer. And what happens is people in the old days, long before you were born. It's I was already an older guy, but they used to do it. You may remember this. I don't know if you remember it. I don't know if they didn't show up, but when it came to Israeli bonds,
Yeah.
they used to have an Israeli bond drive on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. I forget what the day would be, and they would try to embarrass you into it. I saw it when I was in Smicha already. I saw that. That was the first time I saw that. That they try to embarrass you into paying. They would announce the name. Mrs. Smith gave $10,000, and so they have all the big givers. Oh, if Mrs. Smith gave $10,000, so I have to give $20,000. I have to give $30,000. You ever see that?
I don't remember the bond drives so much, but like whether you're selling Aliyahs from
Even that.
They announce all the big
Big donuts. Till you feel like you have to do something. You have to be a big guy.
Yeah, you got.
Meanwhile, you're giving away the house.
10,000. I mean,
10,000, 20,000, 30,000.
Yeah, you give $100.
Right. Yeah.
I've never had again.
Say it again.
I don't have any experience with that, but our dad told us a story when he was growing up in Indiana. When he was growing up in Tipton, there was a local radio station. I think it was Indianapolis, that whole county area.
Right.
And it was two old guys, and one of them was a really kind of a surly person. And when it came to charity drives, it was like, all right, like on radio, say announcing, about this much, or it's like, all right, we're a couple months later, whenever the deadline was, all right, he called up people on the radio, didn't call up them, or just called up like on like, oh yeah, just to remind you, so and so said they would pay this much.
On the radio.
On the radio.
There you go.
Not so and so pay this much. How much are you going to pay? No. Hey, so and so, you said you would pay this much. It's
Pay up.
Deadline.
Pay up.
Wow.
Right. Okay. So now the neder under discussion is this in this passage. It's the first type, namely, you can prohibit yourself to something. Okay, that was never prohibited before. So that's what he's saying here. With the exception of a vow, perform a commandment such as above, one cannot use a neder to require oneself to perform an act. For example, if someone were to declare, I make a neder to go to sleep on time, it is not binding under the terms of this passage. The second topic of this passage is shavua, an oath. By means of an oath, one may either prohibit oneself or require oneself to perform an act. Conceptually, there is a great difference between a neder and an oath. A neder changes the status of the object. For example, if I have made an apple forbidden to myself, the apple has the status of a forbidden food to me, and therefore I may not eat the apple. In contrast, an oath places an obligation only on the person. For example, if I have sworn to eat an apple, there is a new obligation upon me, but the halachic status of the apple itself is unchanged. So here's something that goes into the halacha very much so. Let's say I declare Aunt Millie's, I think they closed, that's why I'm picking on them. Aunt Millie's stuff to be not kosher, even though it has some symbol on it. It has a K, some sort of K, curly K, QK. I don't know. I think it's QK. I think they're out of business though.
Oh,
because that used to be that they tore the building down. No,
Aunt Millie's.
Aunt Millie's.
Oh,
They used to be right near Lowe's, but I saw they ripped the whole place down.
Really?
No, that's a red thrift shop.
Oh, so that's all. So Aunt Millie's is still open?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'm not really saying Aunt Millie's. I want to pick on Aunt Millie's. Okay, but let's say I would say that isn't kosher, or whatever the places are. It's not kosher. So what happens is you decide. Well, you call up the local Orthodox rabbi, not me, and you call up and you say, "Is there any problem with Aunt Millie?" And he says, "No." So you say, "Great." So you go and buy Aunt Millie. I come to your house. I see you eating Aunt Millie, and you say, "Would you like a sandwich?" I said, "I'd love a sandwich, but I can't eat from that food." You say, "Why? It's kosher. It's the QK." Okay, I'm not arguing, but I said it's not kosher. So the mouth that makes it usher is it. So if I decide something is forbidden, it's forbidden to me, not to you. Okay, fine. And that is a problem. Halachically, it's I have to be very careful with what you say, because you're basically saying something is forbidden when it's really not forbidden, or may not be forbidden. Okay? And it's not a matter of kashrut. I mean, okay, you can accept a triangle K, you don't accept a triangle K. I really don't care. That's up to the individual. But if I say it's treif, I've cut it off until something changes, or I'm out to neder. Okay? Notice I released the vow. Okay, so now let's go. Here, so it says, Vayedaber Moshe El Rashi Hamatot. So Moshe spoke to the heads of the tribes, Livnei Yisrael Emot, to the children of Israel, saying, now why did he speak to the heads of the tribe and not all of the people? That's a major question, right? He should have said, Vayedaber Moshe El Bnei Yisrael Emor. After all, we're talking about vows. So he says, so Rashi explains, you don't have to speak to everybody. This is a matter of the princes have to know what to do, because they have to know how to nullify the vow. If I'm going to explain to everybody vows, they're going to make jokes of them. I promise, I don't promise. Bli neder. It's no good. You don't want to say that to the Am Hamonis or to the crowds out there. Think about what would happen to all of business. I crossed my fingers behind my back.
That was what I remember. The actual saying that I remember is actually darker in the context of like vows have.
Say it again.
The actual saying I remember, I cross my fingers, is I cross my fingers and hope to die.
Right, sticking in my eye. Right.
It's a lot darker in context to the depth of vows in Judaism. That is not
right.
one.
But when they didn't want to do it, so they would cross their fingers behind their back.
Right.
Say, I had my fingers crossed, it really didn't count. Remember that?
Remember
that, right?
Yeah. Everybody used to, but somebody once told me that's based on a Christian thing.
I'm not arguing that. It may very well be. It's a cross.
Yeah.
It's a cross, right? That's what they say. That's why it tells you to cross the fingers. But
I never heard it until much later.
Yeah, but that's why. But that's what they do. They make a promise with their fingers crossed. And they say, "I didn't."
How can that let you? If that's supposed to be a religious sign for you, how can that let you out of something?
I can't help you with that.
Figure that out.
I can't help you with that logic. Okay, but that's what it was. That's why he's speaking to the heads, because Moshe didn't want vows to be something that people take lightly. Vows are very serious. So he speaks to the heads of the people. Zeh Davan. This is the thing. That Hashem commanded. Ish ki yeduned Hashem. When a man makes a vows a vow to Hashem. He shavua the Elser Yisrael Hashem, or he makes a shavua, an oath to forbid something on his soul, to his person. Lo yachel devaro. He should not let his word become profane. Kechol hayod say mipiv yaseh. Everything that goes out from his mouth, he should do. Okay? So here you're seeing you don't just make things up. And he says, he brings on here, a Jew's word is sacred. For him to violate it is a desecration. So it's not such a light thing. Again, when people start thinking they can start making nevdarim or shavuot or whatever it is they want to make, they should understand that your word is your bond. Which is why in the old days, before people would write contracts so much, it would be a handshake. Handshake, and that would be it. If you broke your word, you were worthless. And so now, it's not only now, it's back in the Gemara times, we would always say you should make a shtar out, you should always make a contract. Why do you need a contract, by the way?
To have it in writing.
Why? Why is writing so important?
Just in case.
In case of what?
In case something happens that the other person can't control, or in case that you just.
There's a disagreement later.
Disagreement, and what's that based upon? Lack of memory.
Yeah.
The halacha never really looked at people and said, "You're a liar." You're a liar. It didn't want to say that. It wanted to say, "You're a lapse of memory." Write it down. Write it down. There's no question at that point. Why? That's why it's interesting at the meeting we just had, right? So the guy said, you have to write down what the responsibilities are. And don't change. Whatever the responsibilities are, that's your responsibility. And let's do that, because once I know what my role is, I know what I can do, I know what I should do, I know what I shouldn't do, right? If I'm the boss, I can't be the worker. I have different roles here, right? So I guess the boss is a worker. The bosses will yell at me. I work 24 hours. Okay, very nice. But they're not sweeping the floors. That's the janitor who does that, and it's his job.
I once had a rabbi in Chicago tell me, I was asking about lending money to somebody. He says, don't lend anybody any amount that is significant. $5 or $10, whatever. You're gonna need something you're gonna get. If somebody comes up and says, I need $100, I need, I can pay you back next month or whatever it is. Just write it down. Let them sign it.
Correct. That tells the person that is a serious loan. Yeah. It's not a tzedakah. Yeah. And when you come back and you want some more, you say, I already have a bill with you. I can't afford to give you more. But that's the nice way of doing it. It also makes a person, by the way, the other part of that is it makes a person feel good because he knows that it's not tzedakah. So he feels good. I'm more than happy to sign it. Whether or not he's ever going to pay it, I have no idea. But he feels good for that. Okay, so, but really, again, when a person makes a vow or says a word, that is something we have to watch. Now, here we come to another part that it goes right along with it. Isha, now you have a woman. Kitido neder l'Hashem. She makes a vow to Hashem. And she forbids something in the house of her father while she is a na'ara. What time frame are we talking about? When she was 12 years old to 12 and a half years old. That's all this halacha is for, 6 months. That's it. Okay, in 6 months, if she makes a vow that will do something that will damage the relationship between her father and her, I won't make you supper, whatever the case is going to be. I won't kiss you. That he can nullify. On the other hand, if she says a vow that does not affect their relationship, that he cannot nullify that. That's what the Torah is saying. But it's only a 6-month period we're talking about. If she's a katana, if she's a minor, then her vows, just like a boy who's a katan, under the age of 13, he makes a vow. His vow is worthless. Doesn't mean anything. If she makes a vow under the age of 12, she's not a bat mitzvah yet. It's meaningless. You don't have to nullify it. It's done. God doesn't take it seriously, as it were. You should train your children not to do that. Okay, but nonetheless, it has no halachic validity. On the other hand, once the girl turns 12, now she's a bat mitzvah, the father has up to 6 months, and we'll go through those laws in 2 seconds, as to when he can nullify it. The boy hits 13, tough luck. Wow. You opened your mouth, there's no room for you. Because the father is not responsible to support the son after 13. The girl is. Was he
responsible for his daughter until she gets married, or what?
Seemingly. Not as. I mean, she's still. No, actually, no. At 12 and a half, she's on her own. He has a 6 month. She has a 6 month grace period.
Okay. Interesting.
But it's just an interesting. But again, most people, when they read this, chutzpah, a woman can't think. It's 6 months, ladies and gentlemen. That's all she has. Okay. He says right here, the phrase gives 2 limitations in number 4. On a father's authority over his daughters in the Dharma oaths. He has rights only so long as she is in his home. This means that she is under his jurisdiction, not that she is physically in his premises. If she was married, however, even if she was subsequently divorced, her father has no rights. Secondly, the term in her youth is narrowly defined in halacha as a 6 month period, like I just said, following her puberty. After that, she is considered to be mature enough to be responsible for her own nadarim, and her father may no longer review them. During the year preceding her religious majority, her nadarim would be subject to review, and they would be binding, subject to her father's approval. If she's found to have an intelligent understanding of her undertaking, fine. But nonetheless, you have only 6 months. Now, Mishamavi Nidra, so the father hears her vow. Or that which she forbade in her soul. And the father was quiet. What happens? So then if he's quiet, then all of her vows are standing. and anything she forbade upon her soul is sinning. On the other hand, v'imheni avia ota yom shamot. But if the father restrained her on the day that he heard it, according to Rev Yisrael, Yakum, then any vow or thing she forbid upon her soul, like it does not stand. Hashem Yislachla, Hashem will forgive her. Now she doesn't know her father said no. She thinks the father didn't hear, or she was obligated, and then she broke it. Hashem will forgive her, which means Rashi learns out that if she who's not even guilty for anything, and it says Hashem will forgive her. Kol v'chomer, all the more so somebody who makes a vow, you have to be careful, because you have to look for Hashem's forgiveness. So, because the father stopped her. Okay, so we'll have to stop there. Like I said, vows it's a really long thing. It's a whole Gemara on Nedarim, and it's a lot of fun when you get into it.